This is low-light trivia. Night sky, 50 questions. There's no timer and nothing to keep up with. Each question gets a pause, then the answer, then a little more about it. If you fall asleep before the end, that's the idea. If you'd like more of these, subscribing helps. That's the last thing I'll ask of you tonight. Let's begin. What is most of the mass in a typical galaxy made up of? A. Interstellar gas. B. Dark matter. C. Ordinary stars. D. Stellar remnants. The answer is dark matter. Although stars and glowing gas clouds are what make galaxies visible, they account for only a small fraction of a galaxy's total mass. The bulk of the gravitational pull holding a galaxy together comes from an invisible component that does not emit or absorb light, inferred instead from its gravitational effects on visible matter, such as the rotation speeds of stars orbiting far from a galaxy's center. In the Helix Nebula, the strange gaseous knots have masses similar to Earth's, but their radii typically extend several times the orbit of which object? A. Neptune. B. Pluto. C. Jupiter. D. Saturn. The answer is Pluto. The knots of gas and dust scattered through the Helix Nebula are surprisingly large, despite containing only Earth-like amounts of mass. Their radii stretch several times farther than Pluto's orbit, meaning this material is spread extremely thin across enormous volumes of space. A puzzle that has intrigued astronomers studying planetary nebulas. Where inside Martian impact craters did researchers pinpoint deposits of impact glass using an orbiting spectrometer? A. Crater floors. B. Rim terraces. C. Ejector blankets. D. Central peaks. The answer is central peaks. Central peaks are the craggy mounds that rebound upward in the middle of a crater during a powerful impact, and finding glass concentrated there helped confirm it formed from the intense heat of the collision itself, rather than from some unrelated volcanic or sedimentary process on the surface. Neptune became the first planet located through which method, rather than by regular sky observations? A. Mathematical predictions based on Uranus orbit. B. Radio telescope signal analysis. C. Spectroscopic analysis of starlight. D. Direct photographic survey of the sky. The answer is mathematical predictions based on Uranus' orbit. Astronomers noticed that Uranus did not move exactly as expected, and Urbain Le Verrier calculated where an unseen planet must be to cause those deviations. His prediction led Johann Galle to find Neptune on his very first night of searching in 1846, making it the only planet discovered through calculation before it was ever observed. William Herschel wanted to name his newly discovered planet after which reigning British monarch? A. King Charles II, B. King George III, C. King James I, D. King Henry VIII. The answer is King George III. Herschel proposed the name Georgium Sidus, meaning George's star, in honor of his royal patron. The suggestion was not well received outside Britain, and the astronomer Johann Elert Bode proposed Uranus instead, after the Greek god of the sky. Bode's name eventually won out, which is why Uranus is the only planet in our solar system whose name comes from Greek rather than Roman mythology. The Georgian name lingered in British almanacs for decades afterwards. Uranus takes its name from the Greek god of what? A. The sea. B. Time. C. The sky. D. The underworld. The answer is the sky. The name was proposed by the astronomer Johann Elert Bode and eventually displaced Herschel's preferred Georgium Sidus. It also makes Uranus the odd one out among the planets. Every other planet in the solar system carries the name of a Roman deity: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune. Uranus alone keeps a Greek name, which is why the Roman equivalent, Caelus, never entered the vocabulary of astronomy in the way the others did. The optics of the donated telescopes were regarded by scientists as comparable to which existing telescope? A. Spitzer, B. Chandra, C. Kepler, D. Hubble. The answer is Hubble. This comparison highlighted why the donation was scientifically significant, since telescopes of that optical quality are costly and difficult to produce. The similarity in capability is part of why NASA pursued using one of the telescopes for the mission that eventually became the Nancy Grace Roman Space Telescope, despite the added expense of new instruments and launch systems. What finally provided a complete explanation for the small deviations in Mercury's orbit that astronomers had once attributed to an unseen planet called Vulcan? A. Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity. B. Urbain Le Verrier's revised planetary tables. C. The discovery of the asteroid belt. D. Newton's law of universal gravitation. The answer is Albert Einstein's general theory of relativity. For decades, astronomers searched for a hidden planet inside Mercury's orbit to account for tiny, unexplained shifts in its path around the Sun. Repeated eclipse observations and sunspot sightings claimed to reveal this planet, nicknamed Vulcan, but none held up under scrutiny. The mystery was finally resolved, not by finding a new body, but by a new theory of gravity that accounted for the effect without any extra mass. About how long is one day on Jupiter, measured by a single rotation? A. 10.5 hours. B. 9.9 hours. C. 16 hours. D. 24 hours. The answer is 9.9 hours. Despite being the largest planet in the solar system, Jupiter spins remarkably fast. This rapid rotation flattens the planet slightly at its poles and also plays a role in generating powerful electrical currents deep within its layer of liquid metallic hydrogen, which in turn helps produce Jupiter's strong magnetic field. What is the name for the outer boundary of a black hole, the surface beyond which nothing can return? A. The photon sphere. B. The event horizon. C. The singularity. D. The ergosphere. The answer is the event horizon. The event horizon is a spherical boundary defined by escape velocity. Outside it, an object moving fast enough can still get away. At the horizon, the speed needed to escape equals the speed of light, and inside it, that speed would have to be greater than light, which nothing can manage. Matter and radiation fall in and do not come out. This is the reason a black hole is literally black rather than merely very dark. According to NASA, how long does the Sun take to complete one rotation at its equator? A. 36 Earth days. B. 50 Earth days. C. 10 Earth days. D. 25 Earth days. The answer is 25 Earth days. Because the Sun is made of plasma rather than solid material, different regions rotate at different speeds. The equator completes a rotation faster than the poles, a phenomenon called differential rotation, which is only possible in a fluid, gaseous body rather than a rigid one like Earth. What is considered the oldest surviving star map in the world? A. The Dunhuang star chart. B. The Farnese Atlas globe. C. The Dura hemisphere woodcuts. D. Ptolemy's Almagest catalogue. The answer is the Dunhuang star chart. This paper scroll, over 2 meters long, was found in caves along the Silk Road in the early 20th century and depicts an independent Chinese constellation tradition unfamiliar to Western eyes, aside from the easily recognized shape of the Big Dipper. Unlike the artistic Greek and Arab traditions, Chinese charts simply plotted stars as dots connected by lines, without any indication of brightness. Why was the Future Imagery Architecture program terminated before completion? A. A change in national security priorities. B. Cost overruns and delays. C. The optics failed quality testing. D. A launch failure destroyed the satellites. The answer is cost overruns and delays. Large defense and intelligence programs sometimes collapse under their own complexity, and this was one such case. The termination left behind fully built telescope optics that were never used for their intended purpose, which is why the National Reconnaissance Office was later able to hand them over to NASA for scientific use instead of scrapping them. The ancient planisphere known as Bianchini's planisphere, uncovered in Rome, is preserved today in which museum? A. The British Museum in London. B. The Vatican Museums in Rome. C. The Louvre in Paris. D. The Uffizi Gallery in Florence. The answer is the Louvre in Paris. This carved plate, showing constellations from Greek, Egyptian, and Mesopotamian traditions, survives only in fragments. It blends multiple sky mapping systems, including the Egyptian decans and Chaldean zodiac, into a single object, showing how ancient cultures layered their star lore onto shared imagery rather than replacing one system with another. In the Morgan-Keenan spectral classification sequence, which letter class represents the hottest stars? A, G, B, M, C, B, D, O. The answer is O. The classification runs from hottest to coolest stars using 7 main letter classes. The sequence places O-type stars at the extreme hot end, with temperature decreasing through each subsequent letter until reaching M-type stars, the coolest of the main classes. This ordering reflects the ionization state visible in each star's spectrum. How much mass, expressed relative to the Sun, was radiated away as pure gravitational energy during the black hole merger detected in the first observation of gravitational waves? A. Half the mass of the Sun. B. 10 times the mass of the Sun. C. 1/10 the mass of the Sun. D. 3 times the mass of the Sun. The answer is 3 times the mass of the Sun. When two black holes spiral together and merge, a portion of their combined mass is converted directly into energy, carried away as ripples in space-time, following Einstein's famous mass-energy relation. The amount released in this event was enormous by everyday standards, yet the resulting distortion detected on Earth was still smaller than the width of an atom. In 2012, How many identical space telescopes did the National Reconnaissance Office donate to NASA? A. 3. B. 2. C. 1. D. 4. The answer is 2. The donation involved a pair of matching telescopes originally built for a classified surveillance program. Because they were identical in design, one was later selected for use in Nancy Grace Roman's Space Telescope mission, while the other remained available for future scientific use. About how wide is Tycho crater on the Moon's surface? A. About 25 miles wide. B. Nearly 100 miles wide. C. More than 52 miles wide. D. About 10 miles wide. The answer is more than 52 miles wide. Tycho is one of the Moon's most prominent craters, formed by an impact that left a scar wide enough to be visible from Earth with binoculars. Craters like this form because the Moon has almost no atmosphere to slow or burn up incoming asteroids and comets, so impacts strike the surface directly and leave lasting marks that can persist for billions of years. According to NASA, what distinguishes Venus among all the planets in terms of its namesake? A. It is the only planet not named after a mythological figure. B. It is the only planet named after a Roman emperor. C. It is the only planet named after a female god. D. It is the only planet named for a Greek deity. The answer is, it is the only planet named after a female god. The ancient Romans named the visible planets after their most important gods, and most of these namesakes were male deities associated with war, wisdom, or power. Venus stands apart because it was named for the Roman goddess of love and beauty, known to the Greeks as Aphrodite, making it unique among the planets in this respect. By how many degrees is Mercury's axis of rotation tilted relative to its orbital plane? A. 2 degrees. B. 45 degrees. C. 23 degrees. D. 90 degrees. The answer is 2 degrees. A tilt this small means Mercury spins almost perfectly upright compared to its path around the Sun, which is why the planet does not experience the kind of seasonal variation seen on worlds with greater axial tilt, such as Earth. Instead, Mercury's extreme temperature differences come mainly from its slow rotation and lack of an insulating atmosphere rather than from seasonal changes. Which global array of radio telescopes produced the first image of the black hole at the center of the Milky Way? A. The Event Horizon Telescope. B. The Very Large Array. C. The Atacama Large Millimeter Array. D. The Square Kilometer Array. The answer is the Event Horizon Telescope. It is not one instrument, but a network of observatories scattered across the Earth, combined so that they work as a single dish, effectively the width of the planet. That is the only way to resolve something so small at such a distance. The technique is called Very Long Baseline Interferometry, and it requires the participating telescopes to record their data against atomic clocks, so the signals can be correctly combined afterwards. According to NASA, humans first saw the far side of the Moon after which nation's spacecraft flew past it in 1959? A. France. B. Soviet Union. C. China. D. United States. The answer is Soviet Union. Because the Moon is tidally locked to Earth, the same hemisphere always faces us, and the far side remained a mystery until spacecraft technology allowed a flyby. This event marked one of the early milestones of the space age, revealing a heavily cratered hemisphere quite different in appearance from the near side we see from Earth. In which year did the Event Horizon Telescope carry out the observations that produced its image of Sagittarius A's star? A. 2012. B. 2019. C. 2015. D. 2017. The answer is 2017. The observations were made in April of that year. Turning them into an image took considerably longer because the data had to be shipped physically from telescopes around the world, combined, and then reconstructed. While the array was gathering that data, a fleet of other observatories watched the same target at other wavelengths, including 3 NASA X-ray telescopes, so that the picture could be set in a wider physical context. Who first predicted the existence of what we now call black holes? In a paper presented to the Royal Society in 1783. A. The Marquis de Laplace. B. Albert Einstein. C. Carl Schwarzschild. D. The Reverend John Mitchell. The answer is the Reverend John Mitchell. Long before telescopes could detect anything so dark, the idea of an object whose gravity was strong enough to trap even light was proposed using basic Newtonian reasoning. The concept was later independently suggested by Laplace, but it took nearly 2 centuries until the discovery of Cygnus X1 before such an object was actually identified in the sky. The space telescopes donated by the NRO were built under which program? A. Future Imagery Architecture. B. Keyhole Optical Systems. C. National Surveillance Array. D. Corona Reconnaissance Initiative. The answer is Future Imagery Architecture. This program was originally designed to produce advanced surveillance satellites, but it was cancelled because of cost overruns and delays before the hardware could be used for its intended military purpose. The unused telescopes were later found to have optics comparable to the Hubble Space Telescope, making them valuable for civilian astronomy instead. According to NASA, how wide is Tycho crater on the Moon's surface? A. About 20 kilometers. B. More than 150 kilometers. C. More than 85 kilometers. D. About 40 kilometers. The answer is more than 85 kilometers. Tycho crater formed from an impact and remains one of the Moon's most prominent surface features, visible from Earth due to bright rays of ejected material radiating outward from it. Its large size reflects the scale of impacts that have shaped the lunar surface over billions of years, since the Moon's thin atmosphere offers little protection against incoming debris. Which star catalogue was completed in 1437 using a marble sextant with a radius of 36 meters built in Samarkand? A. The Hipparchus catalogue. B. The Tycho Brahe catalogue. C. The Ptolemaic Almagest catalogue. D. The Ulugh Beg catalogue. The answer is the Ulugh Beg catalogue. Long before telescopes existed, astronomers relied on massive stone instruments to measure star positions by eye. The Samarkand Observatory's huge sextant allowed remarkably precise readings for its time, producing a catalogue whose accuracy, when later compared to satellite data, turned out to be strikingly close to that of the much older Hipparchus catalogue it was meant to improve upon. Which British astronomer discovered the planet Uranus in 1781? A. John Flamsteed. B. Edmund Halley. C. James Bradley. D. William Herschel. The answer is William Herschel. Uranus was the first planet ever found with the aid of a telescope. Every planet known before it had been visible to the naked eye and had been tracked since antiquity, so Herschel's find genuinely enlarged the known solar system for the first time in recorded history. He did not immediately realize what he had. His first thought was that the object was a comet, or possibly a star, and it took another 2 years before it was universally accepted as a planet. What is the approximate surface temperature on Venus, according to NASA? A. 872 degrees Fahrenheit. B. 650 degrees Fahrenheit. C. 950 degrees Fahrenheit. D. 710 degrees Fahrenheit. The answer is 872 degrees Fahrenheit. Venus's thick atmosphere, made mostly of carbon dioxide, traps heat so effectively that the planet's surface stays hot enough to melt lead, even though Venus is farther from the Sun than Mercury. This runaway greenhouse effect makes Venus the hottest planet in the solar system, despite Mercury receiving more direct sunlight. In which German city was the oldest printed star chart from Europe published in 1515? A. Vienna. B. Munich. C. Nuremberg. D. Cologne. The answer is Nuremberg. This chart, a pair of woodcuts made by Albrecht Dürer, working with a mathematician and an astronomer, brought the ancient Greek constellation figures to a wide audience for the first time through the new technology of printing. Before this, every star chart in Europe and the Arab world had to be copied out by hand, one at a time, making them rare and difficult to reproduce accurately. One hypothesis for why knots form and evolve in planetary nebulas involves existing gas being pushed outward by what kind of force from the central star? A. A sudden gravitational collapse. B. A burst of infrared radiation. C. A magnetic field reversal. D. A highly energetic stellar wind. The answer is a highly energetic stellar wind. As a dying star sheds its outer layers, it can later produce a thinner but much faster and more energetic wind. This new wind sweeps through the older, denser gas, potentially carving it into the knotted, cometary-looking structures seen in the Helix Nebula and similar objects, though the exact process remains an active area of study. A black hole is a location in space where the gravitational pull is so strong that not even what can escape? A. Gravity. B. Sound. C. Radio waves. D. Light. The answer is light. This is the whole definition, and everything else follows from it. Because light cannot get out, a black hole emits nothing of its own and cannot be seen directly. Astronomers therefore study them indirectly, by watching how nearby stars move, by observing the hot gas spiraling in before it crosses the boundary, and by looking for the dark silhouette that the horizon casts against glowing material behind it. What is the tilt of Earth's axis of rotation relative to its orbital plane, which causes the yearly cycle of seasons? A. 90 degrees. B. 23.4 degrees. C. 45 degrees. D. 12.2 degrees. The answer is 23.4 degrees. This consistent tilt means that as Earth travels around the Sun, Different hemispheres receive more or less direct sunlight at different times of year, producing the familiar pattern of summer, winter, spring, and fall. Without this tilt, sunlight would strike the planet almost evenly year-round, and the seasonal changes that shape ecosystems and climate patterns would not occur in the way they do now. Which gas in the atmosphere of Uranus gives the planet its blue-green color? A. Ammonia. B. Methane. C. Nitrogen. D. Sulfur dioxide. The answer is methane. The atmosphere of Uranus is mostly hydrogen and helium, with a small amount of methane and traces of water and ammonia. Sunlight passes down through that atmosphere and is reflected back out by the cloud tops. On the way, methane absorbs the red end of the spectrum, so what escapes is the blue-green light we see. The color is not a property of the planet's surface at all. Uranus, being an ice giant, has no true surface to speak of. Which planet takes the least time to complete one orbit around the Sun, finishing a full trip in just 88 Earth days? A. Venus. B. Mars. C. Earth. D. Mercury. The answer is Mercury. Mercury's tight, swift orbit means it circles the Sun faster than any other planet, even though Venus is actually hotter due to its thick atmosphere trapping heat. Speed of orbit and surface temperature are separate properties, and Mercury's proximity to the Sun gives it the shortest year in the solar system. Despite what the name suggests, a black hole is not empty. What does it actually contain? A. A great deal of matter in a very small space. B. Pure energy with no mass at all. C. A vacuum held together by negative pressure. D. An empty gravitational field. The answer is a great deal of matter in a very small space. The word hole is doing a lot of misleading work. A black hole is the opposite of an absence. It is an enormous quantity of matter compressed into a volume small enough that its own gravity overwhelms everything else. What makes it black is not emptiness, but the fact that light cannot climb out of the gravitational well. There is nothing to see, which is not the same as nothing being there. Gaia scans the sky using 2 telescopes pointed in different directions at once. What angle separates the 2 fields of view? A. 90 degrees. B. 106.5 degrees. C. 120 degrees. D. 45 degrees. The answer is 106.5 degrees. Gaia's twin telescopes look out at a fixed angle from each other, so that, as the spacecraft rotates once every 6 hours, both patches of sky sweep past the same focal plane. Combining the two views lets scientists build a precise, self-consistent map of star positions across the whole sky, rather than relying on separate, harder-to-align observations. A stellar black hole forms at the end of the life of what kind of object? A. A small sun-like star. B. A white dwarf star. C. A massive star. D. A neutron star. The answer is a massive star. At the end of such a star's life, the core becomes unstable and collapses inward on itself, while the outer layers are blown away. What remains at the center is compressed past the point where any known force can hold it up. Not every star does this. Smaller stars, including the Sun, end as white dwarfs instead, cooling slowly for an extraordinarily long time rather than collapsing to a point. What was the voltage applied across the gas cell of Asker's gas imaging spectrometer? A. 5,000 volts. B. 12,000 volts. C. 8,000 volts. D. 2,000 volts. The answer is 8,000 volts. This high voltage created the electric field needed inside the gas cell to accelerate electrons freed by incoming X-rays, producing the scintillation light that the phototube detected. Such gas-based detectors were common in early X-ray astronomy, before solid-state imaging spectrometers became more widely used for their finer energy resolution. On what date did the spacecraft that would spend over a decade studying Saturn launch from Earth? A. October 15th, 1997. B. July 4th, 1997. C. October 15th, 2004. D. September 15th, 1997. The answer is October 15th, 1997. The spacecraft spent about 7 years traveling before it reached Saturn and began its detailed study of the planet's rings and moons in 2004. It went on to spend more than a decade orbiting the Saturn system, eventually being deliberately plunged into the planet to protect its icy moons from contamination. How many constellations does the International Astronomical Union officially designate? A. 76. B. 88. C. 92. D. 101. The answer is 88. This fixed set covers the entire celestial sphere without gaps or overlaps, thanks to the boundary system established in the early 20th century. Every point in the sky belongs to exactly one of these constellations, which is why astronomers can rank them precisely by the solid angle each one occupies. Uranus holds a particular distinction. It was the first planet to be discovered with the aid of what instrument? A. A spectrometer. B. A sextant. C. A telescope. D. A camera. The answer is a telescope. Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are all bright enough to see with the naked eye, and every ancient culture that watched the sky knew them as wandering stars. Nobody discovered them, they were simply always there. Uranus is faint, and it moves slowly, so it needed magnification to be picked out. Its discovery in 1781 was the first time in recorded history that the number of known planets increased. The method used in Alexandria to calculate the date of Easter, long regarded with awe by historians, was shown using sources from which region to be based on very simple procedures. A. Coptic sources. B. Syriac sources. C. Byzantine sources. D. Ethiopic sources. The answer is Ethiopic sources. The Alexandrian method for calculating Easter's date had a reputation among historians for being intricate and difficult to reconstruct. Yet by turning to Ethiopic sources, which preserved related computational traditions, it became possible to show that the underlying procedures were in fact quite simple, deflating a long-standing scholarly assumption about the computus's complexity. Which planet is the least dense in our solar system? So light that it would float in water if you could find a bath large enough. A. Neptune. B. Uranus. C. Jupiter. D. Saturn. The answer is Saturn. Saturn's average density is lower than that of water, a consequence of being enormous and made almost entirely of hydrogen and helium. Uranus comes second in this ranking. Density says nothing about size or mass here, only about how tightly the material is packed. Saturn is the second largest planet in the solar system and comfortably heavier than Earth, but its bulk is spread across such a vast volume that the average works out remarkably thin. Which of Jupiter's large moons is described as one of the likeliest places to find life elsewhere in the solar system? A. Ganymede. B. Europa. C. Io. D. Callisto. The answer is Europa. This moon is thought to hide a vast, liquid ocean beneath its icy outer crust, which is why scientists consider it a promising target in the search for life beyond Earth. It later became the focus of a dedicated NASA mission, designed to study its ice shell and subsurface ocean in greater detail. At the event horizon of a black hole, the escape velocity becomes equal to what? A. Earth's orbital velocity. B. The speed of light. C. The speed of sound. D. The speed of gravitational waves. The answer is the speed of light. Escape velocity is simply the speed something needs in order to get away from a body's gravity and never fall back. On Earth, it is about 11 kilometers a second. The event horizon is defined as the surface where that figure reaches the speed of light. Since nothing can travel faster than light, nothing inside can leave, and this holds regardless of how powerful an engine you imagine strapping to it. Which moon of Saturn has body proportions similar to Jupiter's small moon, Amalthea? A. Janus. B. Mimas. C. Prometheus. D. Hyperion. The answer is Prometheus. Amalthea is notably elongated, about twice as long as it is wide, and this stretched shape closely resembles that of Saturn's small moon Prometheus, even though Amalthea is somewhat larger. Interestingly, when comparing mass rather than shape, Amalthea turns out to be closer to Saturn's moon Janus, showing how different measurements can pair a body with different companions. Uranus and one other planet spin in the opposite direction to the rest of the solar system. Which is the other one? A. Venus. B. Neptune. C. Mercury. D. Mars. The answer is Venus. Most planets rotate in the same direction they orbit, a leftover of the spinning disk of gas and dust they formed from. Uranus and Venus do not. Venus turns backwards very slowly, taking longer to complete one rotation than it does to go around the Sun. Uranus is a stranger case because its extreme tilt makes the whole idea of direction awkward. It is lying on its side, so it is rolling rather than spinning upright. What event does NASA describe as likely leading to the formation of the Moon? A. A collision between a Mars-sized body and Earth. B. Condensation from Earth's early atmosphere. C. The capture of a passing asteroid by Earth's gravity. D. A nearby supernova explosion. The answer is a collision between a Mars-sized body and Earth. Debris from this ancient impact, drawn from both Earth and the colliding body, is thought to have coalesced into the Moon. The newly formed body was initially molten, and over about 100 million years, its magma ocean cooled and crystallized, with lighter minerals rising to form the crust we see today. What fraction of the speed of light was the massive galaxy traveling as it ploughed through its cluster? A. 4.4%, B. 0.44%, C. 44%, D. 0.04%. The answer is 0.44%. Even a small fraction of light speed represents an enormous velocity for an object as massive as a galaxy. This galaxy, weighing roughly 200 trillion times as much as Earth, was moving fast enough to punch through a cluster of galaxies without being torn apart, though its outer layers were stripped away in the process. That's all of them. Sleep well.